Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Again, thank you for coming by. I enjoy you hanging out with me, and I hope you enjoy listening to me too. Got something today that's kind of cutting edge, let's just go to it. I'm reading an article in Politico. And are terrorists that are incarcerated in the United States ready for life after prison? Knee-jerk reaction? Who cares? And why should there ever be a life after prison? That's the knee-jerk reaction. We say terrorist, we think of 9/11. We think of people committing atrocities and mass murders. But there's a couple of other kind of terrorists out there, and it's a slippery slope, even for me. Because I'm about as red, white, and blue as it gets. Ultra-conservative, ultra-right-winger. Love our president, by the way. I know it's not very popular, but to the folks that hang out in the Inferno, it's pretty popular. And if you don't know it by now, well, you're not paying attention. 7 years. There's a guy named Shakar Masari. He's in prison. 7 years. Did 7 years. Big number. And I'd know. Big number. He read a bunch of books about Islamic history. He tried to figure out why he wanted to join a terrorist group overseas. That's why he was arrested. He tried to join a terrorist group overseas. Last August, he was ready to go. So the officials from the prison dropped him off at a gas station in eastern Minnesota. He took a bus to a halfway house in Chicago. There was no exit interview. There was no risk assessment. There was nothing. He got on the bus. He got off the bus. So why does that bother me so much? Well, if there's no plan, what's the expression? If you fail to plan, you've planned to fail. Now, this guy is 30 some odd years old. So he should know better. But he also should have known better than to try to join a terrorist group in the first place. And he says he regrets it. He calls it the dumbest thing he's ever done. Okay, you locked him up for all these years. You don't give him anything in prison. Then you release him. That's his complaint. Well, I don't know that to be true. You've figured out by now there's a lot of stuff goes on in prison, and I know all about it. Okay? So, since the attacks of September 11th, there have been over 1,000 individuals who have been convicted in connection with international terrorism in the United States. 1,000. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's not. It's not. But here's the problem. These people are now coming up for release. What do we do? And I'm not trying to say that a guy robs a bank or, white-collar crime or DUI. Crime's a crime. And you commit a crime, and you do your time. It's just that simple. But I got some theories on that, too, and we'll get back to that in just a minute. But here's a statement from the Federal Bureau of Prisons that said it offers the same reentry opportunity for all inmates, but it added it's trying to find new approaches tailored to reducing recidivism for terrorism inmates. There's a problem with that right there. Where am I going with this? Well, if you're convicted of a terroristic act, my way of thinking, and maybe it's yours, you should spend the rest of your natural-born life in prison without any parole or release at all. Or B, you should be deported back to your country of origin. B.1. Like this guy Massar. He was born in Minnesota. Actually, he was born in Alabama, but he lived in Minnesota. So then, kick him out. It's been done. It's been done. You're no longer able to live in this country. Those are your three options. I think if you do and are committed of a terroristic act and convicted of that crime, you should never see the light of day again. Harken back to Guantanamo Bay and the Gitmo and the big hubbub over that, and when our last president was trading prisoners back and forth. 5 guys were released, and I wrote about this. 5 guys were released, and immediately 4 of them went right back to their old ways with Al-Qaeda and all of that stuff. So a leopard doesn't change his spots. Now, you got a guy in the United States, cheats on his taxes, robs a bank, DWI, whatever. White-collar crime, blue-collar crime, beats somebody up, shoots somebody. Does his time, he gets out. He's an American citizen, he gets a chance. I know, it doesn't sound right, but that's the way I feel. And that's how it is. Now, we'll go back to another one of these guys. His name is Abdullah Youssef. He pled guilty to attempting to join an Islamic terror group. Now, they did a risk assessment on Youssef. Now, he's 22 years old. So he's got a long life ahead of him if he stays in jail the rest of his life. They did a risk assessment, and they basically said that his radicalization began partly because he struggled to reconcile his Somalian and Muslim identity at home with the pressure to fit in at school. Wrong answer. Everybody got picked on in school. Even me. And I was a cute little kid. Well, we'll go back. We'll leave that for another day. You know I'm a cute little guy. I'm a cute big guy. Everybody gets picked on. So he joins a terrorist group because he didn't like the way he was treated by his classmates. Doesn't make sense. All right? But here now. His lawyers crafted a curriculum in which Youssef learned about U.S. civics during his time in custody, including lessons on how to make a difference in society without violence. He met a local Somali-American teacher who mentored him on racial and religious identity. Okay. Youssef's released last year. He continues to see a therapist and a mentor, and the court requires him to take a polygraph test to monitor his progress. Among the challenges for other districts to replace Minnesota's process in this significant resource is funding. Who's paying for all this? And in addition, he's on 20-year post-supervision. Who pays for that? That's a parole officer monitoring this guy's movements for 20 years. Now, we live in New York. I don't know about the parole system in Minnesota. But I know parole officers. I've had one. Yeah. They got a lot of guys to watch. And if you don't report, and I'm not telling you any secrets, they don't care unless you do something wrong. They just don't have the time. Like a social worker with foster children. Or a senior citizen advocate. They have so many cases. The caseworker is bogged down with cases. They fit through the cracks. Only the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Only the idiot gets in trouble with his parole officer. You can dip and dive. Now I'll go back to this, and I said I'll get back to it in just a minute. And I've said this, and I'll say it again. If you get sentenced to a 5-year prison term, you do 5 years. There is no post-release. There's nothing. You're a free person. You do your time. Saves the municipality hundreds of millions of dollars. Avoids all kind of corruption. Oh, but there's a catch. Get caught again doing a crime. Now the penalty is double. That's the biggest deterrent I know. So I don't know about you, but that's a pretty strong deterrent. And as far as taking care of quote-unquote terrorists, when they leave the prison, maybe we just shouldn't let them leave. I'm out. See you next week. Fire.